So hello everyone. Maya has finally joined us, so we can get started. To give you a bit of background about Maya, she's working at the Leadership and Innovation Lab, and she's today here to talk about some of the soft skills and more, I would say, unexpected skills that one person might need to actually succeed in STEM and eventually have a STEM career. So with that, I can leave this to Maya, and yeah, Maya, the baton is yours.
Hi, everybody. Sorry that I'm a little bit late. We had a bit of a technical difficulty. I'm here now. Let's get started. So here you are. So I'm director of the Leadership and Innovation Lab. So a bit of background about myself. So I run student innovation, and in that capacity, I run what we call the Leadership Innovation Lab, where we really just focus on helping students bring their entrepreneurial dreams to life. So any kind of projects really, for-profit, non-profit, school clubs, and definitely we have a lot of STEM-related projects. So that's kind of what I'm also going to talk about today. I run the Low Venture Fund, and my own background is economics and political science, and I went to Cornell. All right, so let's start by talking a little bit about some typical application components. This is more focused on US apps, of course, but these application components are quite broadly applicable to any kind of university you might be targeting universally. All right, so there are several elements on which people are judged, okay? Diversity and demographics, grades and scores, application persona, so that would be your personal strengths, your qualities, as well as extracurricular activities. So today we're going to focus on how to make yourself stand out, and I'm going to talk to you about why extracurricular activities are, in my opinion, the best way to do so. All right. Top universities are all looking for leaders and innovators, okay? So you can see over here from this list of Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Cornell, Johns Hopkins, for instance, not Ivy necessarily, but close to Ivy, like Stanford, not Ivy, but close to Ivy. These schools all tell you straight up that they're looking for leaders, people who are inspiring, people who go beyond set limits, people who make a difference, people who are involved in their community, people who have workplace experience, people who are committed to service, etc., etc. All of these are different ways of just saying that we would like people who will truly make an impact. All right. So, how do you prove that you're one of these people, that you are people who will make an impact? Okay. Soft skills entrepreneurial projects are the best way to prove ability, in my opinion. Let me show you why. Okay. These kinds of entrepreneurial projects really portray autonomy and confidence. Okay. Are you able to take the initiative and lead? Do you have enough confidence to speak in public, give public speeches? Can you handle interpersonal relationships? Can you deal with difficult challenges in a mature fashion? Can you face hurdles and confront them and keep going? Or do you break down, for instance? Are you perhaps overly reliant on other people, on parents, on teachers, on classmates? Are you a self-resilient person, for instance? Okay. There's also analytical thinking and independent research skills, which are very, very well and truly demonstrated in any entrepreneurial endeavor. All right. For instance, what kinds of skills do you really showcase? Industry research, looking into problems and solutions, peers, customers, trends, price points, etc. Market validation, proving that researching what you might need to find in the market, in the industry, looking through quantitative data, looking at size of the market, trends in buyer behavior or consumer behavior, for instance. There's also competitor analysis, identifying competitors, strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. All of these are research skills. So you may not necessarily be researching STEM, or you may not necessarily be researching whatever it is. But the point is, the ability to have this kind of analytical thinking and research skills is the key. Okay. Critical thinking and decision-making skills, all right? These are traits that are valued by many universities, especially the top tier ones, and entrepreneurial experiences can help you showcase these abilities to admissions officers, all right? Being able to critically analyze problems, to apply practical solutions, rather than just really running to the books, running to theoretical knowledge, all right? How might you situate yourself in the real world environment, dealing with real world problems, okay? Making decisions when needed, being decisive rather than arbitrary, having the courage to make a decision instead of being stuck between many options, not knowing what to choose, all right? Being able to then justify that decision with reasoned arguments based on data, information, trends, and being able to take responsibility for those decisions, owning to it, being that, okay, maybe this was a bad decision. Somewhere down the road, I've been proven wrong. All right. Are you mature enough to take consequences for the decisions that you have taken, or you run away from them? These are all ways of showing the kinds of character and kinds of values that you have. These are the things that are valuable to top tier schools. All right. Lastly, being able to react swiftly in the face of market changes. Okay. Problem solving as well as obstacle tackling. So, in college admissions interviews and essays, one of the very common questions is, how do you overcome challenges? All right. When you build your own project, you're likely to encounter many, many challenges and difficulties. So, are you able to tackle these questions? All right. Let's say you're about to launch a new product. How would you effectively promote it? Let's say you're faced with very limited operating costs. Okay. How would you increase sales? In the face of technical issues, in the face of, say, consumer complaints, marketing mishaps, problems, do you have corresponding solutions, right? Okay. Now, doing your own entrepreneurial endeavor shows you the commitment to take projects from inception all the way to completion. Saying that you are someone who is a very resilient person, it's just words, right? Talking is free. How do you go from idea to completion, inception to completion? That journey itself needs to be undertaken to be believed. Okay. All right. Of course, there's multitasking skills. So when you do something like this, you're overseeing multiple projects at once. You have your sales pitch, your marketing, your recruitment, project launches, brand corporations, tech platforms. There are many, many things going on at the same time, and you're going to have to learn to juggle all of these. Okay. All right. Professional communication skills. How do you pitch? How do you convince people to give you their time, energy, money, whatever it is, labor? Okay. How do you be sufficiently charismatic and convincing that people are willing to work for you? All right. This is a life skill beyond university. If you're able to master this, it will make the rest of your life far easier. So, how do you pitch? How do you persuade? Okay. That's with investors, with people who work for you. How do you be a clear and persuasive leader? Are you being clear enough? Are you making sure that expectations are well managed? Do people know what they can expect in this job? With your customers or with people who are interacting with your project, for instance, how do you gain consumer trust? How do you persuade them to purchase your product? With your partners, how do you establish and maintain good relationships? All right? Okay. Having talked about all of those, you may be wondering, how is all of this relevant? Everything that I just said is what you're able to demonstrate in a project that you launch, in an entrepreneurial endeavor that you undertake on your own. Why is all of this important? Because it's going to be what makes you stand out in the competition. Okay. Now, take a step back and think, what are the various ways that you're going to be able to compete? Okay. Let me walk this through. So, if you are going to compete on diversity and demographics, all right? So in the US, at the very least, 90% of the student body is usually domestic US students, 10% is international students. So if you are part of the 90% that qualifies as domestic US students, do you then identify as PCOS, person of color? Do you identify as, say, Native American? Are you from perhaps a lesser known state like Missouri? I'm not saying any of these to be rude or condescending or anything like this. It's just that there are diversity requirements in admissions. And so if you are from a state that is overrepresented, for instance, if you're from New York State, that's way overrepresented. Say somewhere like Wyoming or Missouri, for instance, it's going to be far less represented. So those people from those less represented states are going to have a competitive advantage in terms of diversity. All right. If you're competing with international students, are you a first generation college students? Most people are not anymore, right? Most of our parents' generation went to college. Are you from somewhere like Bhutan, like a very, very underrepresented country, for instance? If you are from, say, Asia, all right? Or if you are from, I want to say another very competitive region, for instance, or the UK, all right? That's not going to work out in your favor in terms of competing on diversity and demographics. Now, competing on grades and scores, okay? In competition for top tier schools, almost everybody is a straight A student, everyone, all right? So Look at these screenshots that I have over here for you. ACT, SAT scores, perfect or almost perfect, all right? Subject test, maybe IB subject test, for instance, almost full marks. IB is out of 45, okay? These kids are scoring 43, 44, 8 or more AP classes, honors classes, all of those things, all right? So we're talking literally 4 years from grade 9 to grade 12, 4 years of A's, okay? So at the very top tier schools, this is the kind of competition that we're talking about. How do you then differentiate yourself, especially if, let's say, you go to a school that does not allow you to do anything more academically? You can't, okay? You can't take more AP classes. You can't take more honors classes. You just cannot. What else can you do? All right. Now, last element, consider competing on your application persona. Maybe I don't have the grades. Maybe I'm not from Bhutan, but I'm just a better person. Can I compete on that? All right. I've written over here in this matrix here, pardon me, there are 15. There are 15 profiles, all right, application personas that you might be able to take. For instance, maybe you're a sports person, maybe you're a performer, maybe you're a writer, poet, artist, whatever. 15 different profiles that you presumably can have, all right? These 15 are not exhaustive. There can be way more profiles than this. You are also unlikely to be the only person in any of this box. You will not be the only person in any of this box. So any box that you think that you belong to, probably 100,000 other people are also in that same box as you. Okay, so it's not unique. All right. How do you try to make yourself more unique? The solution is mix and match. All right. How do you mix and match such that you demonstrate uniqueness, commitment, maturity, depth of character? Okay. I'm here to tell you that the way that you do that is via your own extracurricular activity profile, via a signature project of your own. This ties back into what I was talking about earlier about what doing a project or an entrepreneurial endeavor of your own proves. Okay. In my view, no other method is as effective at proving demonstrator ability. I've been in this industry a very, very long time. I've gone through at least 8 application cycles and personally coached thousands of students. All right. I think that if you are interested from my bio, my students have gained admissions to almost all of the top 20 or 30 schools worldwide. All right. So from my experience, I'm here to tell you that there's no other method that's as effective at proving demonstrator ability. What is demonstrator ability? It's ability that you can demonstrate through something, as the word suggests, okay? It's not just ability that you claim to have, which anyone can do. Words are free, all right? So launching your own project proves all of these things: your autonomy and confidence, your analytical thinking skills, your comfort with obstacles and problem solving, your commitment to see things through, your resilience, your ability to motivate, discipline, and communicate. Doing all of these through your own project demonstrates that, you know, you're putting your actions where your words are. All right. What's the takeaway here? You probably cannot change your diversity or your demographic profile. You can't help where you grew up. You can't help what you're born as, all right? At the very top, almost everybody has perfect grades and scores. So the most effective means of differentiating yourself is going to be via your application persona, via your personal strengths and qualities, okay? How do you demonstrate something, pardon me, how do you demonstrate something so intangible in a very real and provable way and without spending way too much time and energy? So I want to show you some real cases. These are all my students, all right? Developing your leadership profile in STEM. How can you showcase that you are that 1 in a million STEM student through a project like this, okay? Case number 1, a student from Washington State running a project called Cybersecurity It, all right? This student is an aspiring CS major, passionate about using CS as a tool for building a safer and more secure future. Now, specifically interested in cybersecurity. So this student built this project to offer free-for-all cybersecurity related education via her own original curriculum. So she made the curriculum as well as workshops, okay? She further branched into financial literacy in relation to online frauds and scams, as well as cyberbullying, which is a pressing social issue growing increasingly. So she grew this project from a small home-based project into an international group spanning several US states and countries, all right? The curriculum is now also offered on a major e-learning platform with global reach. Okay, so this is the kind of project that was developed, nurtured, elevated in the Leadership and Innovation Lab, which I run. Okay, this is what we do for students to help them truly create that element that makes them stand out from the crowd. Right. So I have extracted over here for all of you. If you see in this green box on the bottom, from that matrix that we looked at just now in terms of various personas that you can have. Doing a project like this, what personas are demonstrated in such a project like this? So you can see from over here that with this one project, she essentially hits 6 boxes, 6 birds with 1 stone. Okay, so in this one project, she demonstrated that she's a community organizer. She's a volunteer caring about the community. She cares about community service, social justice. She's clearly a teacher. She made a curriculum. She runs workshops. She has a talent and interest in nurturing people. She is a big STEM fan, obviously. She's very into CS, all right? She's clearly a leader, strong personality, ironwood resilience, the kind of determination that it takes to get a project from this small to this big, right? It's not easy. And she clearly is naturally charismatic, public speaker, happy and comfortable talking in front of people, all right? Okay, second example I want to share with all of you, more environmental. So the Green Society, also a student of mine. So this student is an aspiring environmental science major, passionate about spearheading environmental activism through education. So he actually organized and produced articles, social media campaigns, educational initiatives to teach people about environmental change and what you can do. What's really special is that he created the environmental and climate fiction writing contest for the 2nd year in a row now. So in case, for those of you who don't know what climate fiction is, it's a very niche literary genre. It's like zombie apocalypse, but because of climate change. So I didn't know that this literary genre existed until I met this student and he really likes it. So it's basically people who get together and write short stories about how the world will end because the planet is burning. All right, so it may seem a little bit depressing, but that's what this student is passionate about. Okay, so he started this environmental and climate fiction writing contest, and he got the panel of judges. He obtained like 50 plus entries globally, awarded prizes to winners, and this contest is now in its 2nd year. Now, obviously, that contributed significantly also to the growth of this literary genre in and of itself, climate fiction. This project also spans an international reach today with a very established hierarchy and solid protocols. All right. So I did the same thing that I did for the previous student. So I'm showing you using this one project, what are the various things that this student is demonstrating about himself. Number 1, mass media ability, comms, clearly a writer, community service activist, yes, environmental climate change activist, very much so, okay, naturally charismatic, natural leader, and talent in nurturing, all right, all of this through this one project. Okay, third case that I wanted to share with all of you about the missing synapse. So this is a aspiring doctor, I believe, aspiring life sciences and pre-med major. So definitely very, very STEM, passionate about making access to health and medicine related knowledge more accessible for the masses. So specifically interested in neuroscience. This student actually produced original episodes, original podcast episodes discussing the science of the brain, clinical cases related to brain diseases, current events in medicine, etc. I believe that this podcast is up to, I want to say 8 episodes right now, all of them written by the student. All right. So partner up with fellow medically oriented student organizations to expand his reach to international level, covering six plus states within the US. And the student is also personally quite talented in violin. He's a violinist. So he played the violin in charity concerts organized for senior well-being for old people as an alternative therapy. Right? So you can also see how this project is extremely relevant to the student's intended direction in the STEM field. Okay, having shown you these 3 case studies, all of which were grown in the Leadership and Innovation Lab that I run, let's go a little bit more into how might you start your own project, okay? If you feel something I've written here on this list right now, don't worry, you're not alone. I hear these kinds of things all the time, all right? Common woes from students on their own journey. How do I even do this, Maya? Where do I start? I don't think other people will join me. Other people are not going to believe me. I don't know how to recruit. I don't know how to sell. I don't know how to market. I don't know how to organize events, etc., etc., etc. If you are feeling this, don't worry. You are not inadequate. You are not insufficient. That's not true at all. You're just normal, okay? All of the students I come across have the same list of questions. They have the same concerns when I first start working with them, all right? Okay, let's talk about the Leadership and Innovation Lab process, all right? How do we help students get something like this done? So starting from the left to the right, number one, learn the basics. Learn about your leadership style, okay? What is your own leadership style? We teach you the theoretical basis that you need. At the very least, you should learn how to apply your natural tendencies and strengths. You should learn to navigate the critical challenges of leadership. You should understand the key pillars of entrepreneurship. All right. You should study some successful stories. How did other people do it? What went well? What didn't go well? All right. The theory part of our program is very, very small. I would say that it's maybe 20% or less. All right. Majority of the program is extremely execution focused, extremely hands-on. I always believe that the best time is now. So during the program, we encourage and we lead students to start their projects and start their entrepreneurial endeavors right now during the program. It's not let's just plan and then you can start it on your own after the program. No, all right? We will plan and we will do it right now, okay? So we will dedicate time to develop a concrete plan for your project. By week 3 of the program, the clear project plan should be determined, all right? And then Lil teaches you everything that you might need to know. Recruitment, work protocol, marketing and publicity, sales and fundraising, for instance, how to run for-profit, non-profit ventures, how to course correct. Everything that you might need to know in this entrepreneurial process, we teach you, okay? Lastly, even further up a level, we level it up with unique resources. We help you with recruitment via our proprietary student organization marketplace. We connect you to other student organizations, other projects. We give you the one-to-one mentorship unique to your project needs. We have synergies across all student orgs and projects to arrange win-win collaborations and partnerships. And we help you with legacy planning, which is another further way to stand out from the crowd, right? This is the process that the Leadership and Innovation Lab programs takes people through, takes our students through to ensure that it's here and now. That project, that initiative that you've been thinking about is getting started here and now. Okay. So what are some of our unique features and resources? How do we help students? Okay, let's start from the top left. Number one, active curation by Lil instructors to link up students on projects. So within our network, we see that there are students who are perhaps looking to recruit and students who are looking to join. So we link up these students. This is that process of active curation based on interest, based on fit. We link up these students to see whether we can enhance cooperation, partnership. And so we find our students opportunities to join, all right? Or opportunities to recruit. We help them find people, all right? We help them do so by active curation. We also help them do so by the marketplace. We have our own student organization marketplace that I personally built to help students with recruitment and connection, all right? We also have direct takeover of existing student projects, all right? So we have a repository of student projects that you can directly take over if you are the suitable candidate. These are from students who have built the project but are no longer interested in running it anymore. Maybe they've moved on to other things, their interests have changed, etc., etc. All right? These student projects are currently sitting there with no leader. And so for the right candidate, we can directly install students into these projects for direct takeover. Imagine that's like a free gift falling from the sky, okay? Okay, on the bottom row on the left, there is our biannual showcase. We run it twice a year, spring and fall student research and innovation showcase, where we give students a platform to showcase their projects, to talk about what they did, to share, to increase the tone of the project, to gain some international audience and conference presentation experience. We also run the ID Action Global Pitch Competition, which also happens twice a year, right? This is a global pitching competition where students from all around the world compete to win money, all right? The money is given out by the Lil Venture Fund. The Lil Venture Fund gives out 10K, 10,000 US dollars in free cash a year, okay? It's no strings attached cash given to help student ventures grow, okay? At some point when student projects grow, they will meet barriers, right? Like for instance, they will need money to pay for, say, website domains, or you need money to book venues, or you need money to grow your project some way or another, right? The Lil Venture Fund, which I run, gives out 10K a year to help student projects grow. And this is truly from our passion of helping student projects. There are no strings attached. right? So the winners of the IDX Global Pitch competition get money from the Lil Venture Fund. I actually think that the Lil Venture Fund is the only fund in existence dedicated to high school level student projects. It is possible that high school level student projects can obtain funding from other funding sources, but you would have to compete with like college level or beyond. So it's not, those other funds are not dedicated to this age group. Okay, so I think that our venture fund is the only one dedicated to this age group, to helping student projects and student entrepreneurship expand. Cool. All right, so having talked about all this, what have I demonstrated to you today? I've demonstrated one, how might you enhance your STEM profile by doing something different, by doing your own project, by doing your own entrepreneurship endeavor? I've shown you 3 case studies, all right? I've shown you the cybersecurity one, the Green Society, the environmental one, and then the neuroscience, the podcast one. I've shown you 3 examples from our Leadership and Innovation Lab of STEM-oriented students and the kinds of projects that they can come up with and the amount of significance and depth that adds to their competitiveness and to their profile. I've shown you how anybody can do this. It's not that difficult, all right? What you need is the right ecosystem and the right mentorship. Where do you get that? We are able to offer that in the Leadership and Innovation Lab. It's not just about the program that we bring you through. It's about the whole ecosystem that we've built up to ensure that any project that you start with us is able to elevate it to the maximum potential possible through things like our recruitment tools, our connection tools, active curation, the fact that we give out funding, our competition opportunities, our showcase opportunities, all right? So if you are considering how do I make myself stand out even more as a STEM student, my advice to you is do something like this. Start your own project, start your own entrepreneurial endeavor, be that STEM student that stands out from the crowd. All right. If you are interested in following up on what I've said here, you can feel free to visit our website, which is leadershipinnovationlab.org. So that's I run this lab, so you can come get in touch with me. And if you're interested in some of our programs, please feel free to get in touch. We'll be able to help you and find which program works best for you. We have all kinds. We have group programs, individual programs, etc., etc. So it's really based on your own preference, your own working style, the amount of time that you think you have, etc. All right. We've been able to help many kinds of students from all over the world. So I'm sure that we can help you too as well. All right. I think that that is the end of my presentation. Perhaps I could leave some time for any Q&A if there's any.
Yeah, this actually talk went really well hand in hand with our previous one on university admissions. So that's really great to see. And actually, as a matter of fact, yes, we do that this talk did also raise a number of questions in our audience. So I would kind of starting off quite heavy is someone wants to know how can they, I would say, find their project. So in a way, like, you talked a lot about kind of like, finding, going on that entrepreneurial journey and like finding your project. But I would say where to start? Like, if someone is, for example, interested in physics or engineering, like where can they start, and like how can they maybe look outside the world to see like how to find the project essentially, or like any ideas or tips to how to start there.
Okay. I think that what we usually do is we look at the intersection of academic interests, so as you in your example, physics, as well as personal passions. So to give an example, if let's say you are interested in Formula One racing, right? You're just interested in that, and you enjoy physics, all right? A very good intersectionality where we could potentially see a project emerging is the intersectionality of car racing dynamics and physics, all right? So what you can do if you're interested, if you're more of an educator, you can break down the mechanics of Formula One racing. How is it, the physics behind it, all right? And then teach people about that. That's if you're an educator. If you're not an educator, you're more a doer. You can, for example, build car models and see how fast you can get them to go. All right. That's if you're the hands-on kind of people. If you are, say, into robotics, this would be a very nice intersection. You can build your own robots. So that would hit on robotics, physics, as well as your F1 Formula One racing passion. That's one example. Another example that I can think of, let's say you're interested in I'm trying to think of an example in the STEM field. Let's say math, all right? Math, and you separately are interested in let's say a reality TV. All right, very, very random subject. So math and reality TV, how could you potentially combine this? A good way to look at it is an interesting idea might be, is the salaries of reality TV stars justified? Try and see if you can break that down into an equation, right? Can you find a mathematical equation to calculate based on the number of seasons of a reality TV show, how much would one person expect to make? Maybe using Kardashians as an example. All right, that could be a very interesting project. So what I always do is I look at what one person's academic interest is, and I try and in my conversation with them, I try and unearth other things they're interested in. So this is a very personal process, and it's based on what you individually like. So in this way, by right, no two projects should be the same because nobody else would have the same combination of interest that you have, right? So somebody else could presumably be interested in math, but they don't care about reality TV. Yeah. So in that way, we ensure that your project is unique to you because it hits on several things that are uniquely you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think this is a really comprehensive answer. Thank you. And we have our second question is, you mentioned also like, failure is kind of inevitable in when kind of like going on these engineering or like, well, entrepreneurial journeys.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say how to deal with that failure. Like, perhaps someone might not choose to do a project they're really interested in simply because of the fear that it might fail. So I was kind of like, the question is how to deal with that per se.
Mm, okay. Um, Let me think on that for a second. All right. It's the flu season, it's winter. So what I think is, let me try and respond to this question from a more philosophical perspective, and then I'll get into the entrepreneurial perspective. So from a more philosophical perspective, you wouldn't do anything at all in your life if you're afraid of failure, right? Technically, you wouldn't do anything at all. You would just sit at home on your couch and not try. Okay. So the fact that you're in school, the fact that you're thinking of going into STEM, the fact that you're clearly interested in applying for a decent university, the fact that you're out there doing things already means that you are not as afraid of failure as you think. All right. So first tell yourself that maybe your assumption is wrong. Okay. You think that you're afraid of failure, but actually look at all of these other things that you're doing. You're not afraid of failure. What you're afraid of is actually the fact that you think that the calculated risk is too high. Those are different things. Okay. Are you actually afraid to fail, or you think that this is overly risky? Okay. If actually it's the second one, which I think is most people, they calculate their risk and then they don't do something because they think that it's overly risky. I would ask, did you calculate your risk correctly? All right. A lot of people tend to overestimate risk because people tend to be risk averse. So they feel that things are likelier to fail than they actually are. All right. So are you evaluating your risk correctly? That's the second layer of my answer. The third layer of my answer is, let's say that you try this entrepreneurial endeavor or your project or whatever, and it doesn't work out the way that you think it was going to work out. Number one, is that a failure? Just because things don't work out the way that you envisioned, that's not necessarily a failure, all right? A lot of people's lives didn't work out the way that they thought it would work out. That's not a failure at all right? In fact, how you react to that situation may be a bigger mark of success. And number two, in the absolute worst case scenario, and I'm only saying this in order to ensure that I cover all bases in my answer. Okay, let's say that truly your project collapsed. So what? All right. I think that you would still have learned things from that. Number one, maybe don't do the same thing again. You would have learned that. Number two, you would have a very insightful thing to share about in your application essay. All right. Everyone probably has to write an application essay for any place that you're applying to. And even if it's not in an essay, at some point in your life, you will be asked this question in a very important setting, be it university, be it a job, be it whatever. Somebody's going to ask you, have you ever had any experience with failure? How did you deal with it? Imagine if your answer to that question is no. What kind of impression would that give? Number one. And truly, though, if you've never had experience dealing with failure, I think that that is going to be a problem in your own developmental process. So my suggestion is after my comprehensive analysis for all of you, even if truly it comes to the worst case scenario where you have quote unquote failed, I don't really think that that's something to be so sad about. It really teaches you to get up again. And all of you here will probably be familiar with this very well-known quote, right? When Thomas Edison was asked that he kind of failed 1,000 ways that he knew the light bulb wouldn't work. He said, I didn't fail 1,000 ways. I found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. I'm probably misquoting him, as in those were not his exact words like this, but you get the point, all right? It depends on how you see things.
Great. Yeah, I think this is a very, very deeply philosophical question as well. So thank you for this. It's really insightful, and I think people really do have a lot to take away from that. And kind of my next question goes to the kind of about the fund that you mentioned that you have the for the investing in projects. So let's say maybe if someone doesn't have the missed the deadline to apply for that fund or something, like what are some other ways people can gain finances to help on their entrepreneurial, like how to get the startup money, I would say.
Okay. So for our little venture fund, so like I mentioned, you get the funding through the ID Action Global Pitch Competition, and that competition opens twice a year. I believe next year it's early March and late September. So you have that period where the competition is open, you submit your entry, and then you find out if you've been granted funding based on that competition entry by the little venture fund. So I believe your question is, are there other funding sources for student projects potentially?
Yes, exactly. Or like I would say more even so, not necessarily only student projects, also just talking in general entrepreneurial projects. Like where can people get the money to start? Like, is it like what's your opinion? Maybe like venture capital investments
Yeah,
or
that's not
kind
gonna
of
work. None of
yeah.
that is gonna work. Because I'm being very realistic. Like I said, I've spent very long in this industry. I've worked with a lot of students. If you're aiming for things like VC or seed funding, that's not gonna work because the student project scale is too small, and you're not gonna be able to show any kind of statistics of any kind of ROI, so return on investment. So the concept of if I invest in you, am I gonna make any money? So for most student projects, the ROI is negative. It's not even zero, like you don't even break even. The ROI is negative. So you're not going to be able to convince any angel investors or VC or seed funding and nothing like this to fund in your project. What you need to go for is more charitable sources. You need to go for things like I said, grants or like funding dedicated to these purposes, like what we run. You need to go for corporate social responsibility funds. For instance, places like H&M, for instance, that is a fast fashion company. They know that they're destroying the planet, so their CSR, their corporate social responsibility, is dedicated to environmental purposes. So if let's say your project it happens to be in the same domain, happens to be targeting the same thing as a certain company's CSR, it might be possible for you to get funding from that corporate. But even then it's unsure, because they have to be willing to work with smaller partners, etc., etc. Not clear. From a more local scale, you probably get funding from your own mom and pop shops. If you're going to run a very local based project, like in your hometown, okay, you probably will be able to get funding from like local businesses, things like this. Or then we get into the area of fundraising, right? If you can't get money from anybody else, can you make your own money? Fundraising. So I know students who've set up GoFundMes that have been wildly successful. I recently had a student raise 10K on his GoFundMe. Or even students who do more innovative ways of fundraising. For instance, car wash. All right. So if let's say you and your friends get together and say that we will wash people's cars for like, I don't know, because it's for charity, $30 a car. All right. How many kids are there in your school? There are what, 500 kids? Presumably every parent has a car, or even some have two. If there are 500 kids, that means that there are at least 500 cars. Maybe not everybody gets their car washed. Maybe let's call it 50%. That's 250 cars. 250 cars times $30 a car. That's a lot. That's $7,500. All right. Minus your cost price. How much can it be? Soap and sponge. Maybe you're looking at making $7,000 over a weekend. So look into these innovative ways of making money. I think those are much more profitable.
Great. Yeah, I think this is really interesting. Like personally, I didn't even know about the possibility of getting, for example, the corporate social responsibility funds. I didn't know that such a thing existed from companies. So yeah, I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience learned a lot as well. And we've just about run out of time. So I'm gonna kind of everyone please join me in thanking Maya. And we'll join back in 10 minutes with Izzy, who's gonna talk about the woman in STEM.
Yeah, no
Thank you,
worries.
Maya.
Everybody for listening to me, and hope to hear from you guys and that we can work together. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.